Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Unconditional Life. I'm John.
I'm Johnny.
Today we want to talk to you a little bit about, and because we'll stick with our topic, unconditional integrity. One of my favorite movies, they use the word honor in place of integrity. It's called Rob Roy with Liam Neeson. And his boys ask him, Dad, what's honor? And he responds, honor is what a man gives to himself, and no man can take away but him. And a few years ago, I went on a little journey of my own personal faith, and I started studying Stoicism a little bit. And the Stoics do what they do for the sake of themselves. There's no belief in doing something for God. They don't do something to avoid hell or to try and get to heaven. Seneca says, I think it was Seneca, says that the very act of being a good man is enough in itself for a good man. And so ever since I heard that in that movie, I have done my very best to live my life such that my honor is mine. It's not something that I have to justify. It's not, I don't live my life in love. I don't tell the truth for any other reason than because of me, because I know.
That's who you are.
I don't care what the world thinks around me. And one more thing, and then I know you've got some stuff to say. Even with my kids, like I have one of my youngest actually got in a little bit of trouble one time and ended up with a little bit of community service. And after we completed it, the officer that was in charge of my child said, man, you have a very unique parenting style. What's different about you? And I said, well, I really don't try and run my kids. I just have two rules. Tell the truth and be kind. And I kind of think if we all lived our lives by that, the world would be an easier place. And that's my level of integrity. That's the only things that's my compass for my life. Am I being kind? And am I being honest? And if I do those things, and I don't do them for you, I don't do them for my wife, I don't do them for God, I do them because there's a place inside of me that knows that I live an honorable life, that I live with integrity. And I know you got something to say about this.
Yeah,
So.
The whole podcast that we're doing, it's called The Unconditional Life. And in a broad stroke, it's about, for me anyway, helping me become the truest and realest version of myself.
That's why we're here.
And I think that's to put it simply, the whole reason behind all this. And all the topics we go over, we talk about different ways to help us do that.
And it's because we're sharpening our saws.
Yes.
And we're hoping you'll join us.
And for me, that's what integrity is. Being yourself no matter what. And even sometimes myself gets in the way of that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I'm not putting forth the most authentic version of myself. But I think integrity is the ability to be unconditionally yourself. So I think this topic brings home is a opportunity for us to really drive home or talk about the whole reason this podcast even exists. Look, we're told from a very young age what life's supposed to be, what life's supposed to look like. And we spend most of our lives trying to fill up that template, trying to become
somebody else's blueprint.
What everybody says that is. Integrity to me is being able to define yourself and live into it. Not taking a different template, but creating your own. And really, I think authentic self-ism, and we'll create a word here, is borderless. I think it's always moving. I think because every experience we have changes who we are. It could be very subtle or it could be a huge experience. But I think integrity is being willing, number one, to change with our experiences, not being so cemented in our beliefs that we can't go outside the lines of these templates. But, you know, what do you do when nobody's looking? What do you do when you're the only one to account to yourself? Who that really defines who you are.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're alone?
And for me,
Are you consistent?
yeah, for me, that's what integrity is. I reserve the right to change who I am on a daily basis because my experiences are going to change me. The information that I get is supposed to change me. Our experience, that's what evolution is. Evolution in your soul is being able to change because you found something new out. And your beliefs should be changing daily. Look, there are some things that you should believe that just because they're good things and they should never change, like how to love. You know,
I should love.
Things. Yeah, there are some simple things, but integrity is so complicated and so simple at the same time. It's complicated in that everything that you experience feeds into who you are as a person, and that comes from every angle. It comes from every experience you have. But it's simple in that all you have to do is put the ego aside and authentically be that.
Yes.
So for me, that's what integrity is. It's being unconditionally myself, and that version of me is always changing because my experiences are changing me.
I believe that one of the metrics, well, for me, now again, my wife and I speak a different language than most people to each other, and we're very, very open and transparent. I've mentioned this before. We don't have any secrets. Nothing. I haven't spent $10 on something that she doesn't know about. We know everything about each other's lives. I don't know, some of you are puckering up over there. But to me, that is living an integrous life. To me, it's never wondering when somebody's going to find out something that I have. Now, for me, that might not be everybody's level of honor and integrity, but for me, it's being transparent. There is nothing, I don't hide anything about myself or my life or my relationships from the world. Now, that said, there are things you don't go broadcast to the world. But if you ask me about my life, I will not pull any punches. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I do my very best to be 100% honest. And by that, I mean, when was the last time you're leaving work, you know you're late, your wife called and you said, I'm just jumping on the freeway and you haven't even gotten in the car yet. That's what I'm talking about. We tell white lies all the time. Integrity is being aware of that, catching yourself, calling your wife back and saying, you know what? Hey, I'm working on something, babe. I'm just leaving the office. I'm really not on the freeway.
Yeah.
That is the kind of journey that I'm talking about. And when Johnny talks about, like, we dove into this podcast because we love each other. And we're having these conversations because we want to bring the best men we can to the table of our relationships and our marriage and our family. That's it. That's how we fell in love with each other as brothers. Because he spoke a different language than any man I'd ever met. And as we've talked about that, we realize this conversation needs to be had in the world. There are people starving to find love and connection and depth and even figure out what honor and integrity means for themselves. We're just sharing with you what it means for us. The reason this podcast exists is because both of us have known our whole lives that we have a message burning inside of us. And that message is, you can do better. You can love deeper. You can have more than you think. You are worthy and worth it all. You are worthy of everything that you desire. My wife got me a shirt for Christmas, and I love it. It's my favorite shirt. On the back of my shirt, it says, hey, you, the world is a better place because you're in it. I love you, the person in front of you. That's why this podcast exists, because we love you. And I love me enough to say it out loud. I believe in a world that works. I believe in relationships that are worth having. I believe it's possible to be in a relationship where the only thing that matters is whoever you are interacting with is happy and feels loved and valued. That's why we're here. That's what honor is to me. Showing up as the love that I have burning in my heart. As an honest man as I know how to possibly be. And that's what I would like for all of us to find more of.
Yeah, I honestly believe everybody feels it, but whether we act on it or not is something different. for me, being unconditional is not being so tied to expectations that you allow something authentic to be produced. Yes, but that's exactly why this podcast exists, is because this is who we are. Us doing this podcast is integrity to me.
Yes.
And not everybody agrees with it, and we don't have all the answers, like we've said many, many times. But not doing it feels wrong to me. Not wrong, but it doesn't...
We wouldn't be here had you not said that to me a year or so ago.
Yeah.
John, when besides now would be a better time for us to start talking about this? And that's why we're here. We hope that you will start to have conversations with you about this, with your significant others, with your brothers and your sisters, your co-workers, your family, your mom, your dad, your spouse, your kids. I can't imagine anything but good coming out of a conversation of expansiveness and hope and love. And I know that most of us, that's part of the honor that we carry inside of us, the integrity that we have.
Yeah.
We believe we are loving, giving, contributing people. And think about how often that comes across as criticism and judgment and blame. I think we are addicted to being right. We are horribly addicted to being right. And you could be right or you could be happy. They rarely exist in the same place.
It's very true. And for me, integrity is bringing that version of yourself to all of your relationships.
So that everybody knows who to expect. We all have that friend who you... And I'm not talking about bipolar or mental health issues, but we all know a person that you can't count on because they're inconsistent in who they show up as. My integrity for me is just what Johnny said, bringing me to the table. So you know you get love, authenticity, and truth.
Yeah. Whether you agree with us or not, we're going to be the same version of ourselves regardless. I mean, all of our relationships look different. My relationship with you is different than my relationship with Brad, is different than my relationship with my kids and my wife. But I'm, on the lines of integrity, I'm the same person in all those relationships.
Yes.
I'm consistent. And right now, the consistency I'm trying to put out in the world is a little bit more of an unconditional, loving energy.
Absolutely.
Since we've started doing this podcast, John, I've noticed changes in my life. One of them is I don't get offended anymore. And it may be tough to really, for somebody to believe that about me, but it's true. I have minimalized the ego that I had, or the expectations of other people that I had, to the point where I really don't get offended. Now, some people may say, well, that's because you haven't really been challenged like that. And yeah, that may be true, but I also think the way I perceive those things that are happening to me also eliminate those challenges.
I totally agree. I'm so glad you brought that up. I didn't even think about that in my primary relationship, in my marriage. I finally, since we've been doing this, and I've known this, right? I know it, but to know and not to do is not to know. And I live this now. I know, and I learned, that my wife only wants to help me. She loves me. She shares her body with me. Had my back always. And I used to get defensive. It's impossible sometimes not to get defensive. But when someone who loves you comes to you and brings you something, she has been so good to me to say, hey, honey, I know you don't know you're showing up like this. And if you did, like most people are trying to help you. Jim Rohn said, you're really only going to meet a few really nasty people in the world, even though you might run into them again and again. Most of us are fueled by good intentions and honor and integrity. And that's what we are talking about.
That's why I don't get offended a lot. It's because I've understood that. I now realize
no matter what,
people are always trying to do their best, regardless of how that shows up.
No matter what my wife says to me, I've learned it's to help me.
It allows me to preemptively forgive people for things that they may be about to say to me. you know,
or even realize
so I don't get offended.
Yeah, even realize there's nothing to be apologized for.
Exactly. I think perfect forgiveness is understanding that forgiveness is not needed. Because you weren't offended to begin with.
Yes.
When you can live from an area about that, you're starting to tap into what an unconditional life is, and you're starting to be an integrative. Is that a word? Anyway, the version of yourself you're bringing to the table at that point is filled with integrity. Yeah. We'll just say it that way. And I unconditionally love myself.
As we wrap up, I'd like to leave this thought. A friend of mine's son-in-law said to me one day, and it's stuck. Offense must be taken. It's rarely intended. We love you guys.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you.